Okay, Psych class, we are in part 1 of Unit 2B on consciousness. This will cover sleeping. The dreaming stuff seemed to have so many questions on your survey that I had given you at the end of your Unit 2, a quiz that I think that warrants a class discussion of dreams. And so the video is just going to cover consciousness and sleeping. There are a lot of slides that serve as examples, and so don't feel obligated to write everything down. If you focus on the bold or different colored vocab words and their meaning, you should be fine. If you want to augment your notes with writing down the examples, I mean, feel free, but don't feel obligated. All right, something you definitely want to write down is the definition of consciousness. Consciousness is our awareness of ourselves and our environment. And so, unfortunately, I can't show you a diagram of the brain and show you the area in which this occurs. This is coordinated activity of the whole brain. And this would be different than us saying something was happening on the subconscious or unconscious level. That would be things that we're not necessarily aware of. And so consciousness, I am conscious that I am talking at my computer screen right now. Unconscious or subconscious activity in my brain would include things like regulation of my heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, how awake or sleepy I happen to be at the moment. Those sorts of things would be happening on the unconscious or subconscious level. Okay, concerning consciousness, we had our National Geographic video giving us a lot of cool examples of, I guess, the power of our consciousness, but also its limits. And so remember, concerning limits to our conscious awareness, we have selective attention, and there's 2 different examples of selective attention that we'll cover. But selective attention just means focusing our conscious awareness on particular things. We know that we are horrible multitaskers from the examples in the video and probably just living life, right? That switching attentional gears is costly, and that the focus on one thing probably leads to us missing out on something else. So here are your 2 examples of selective attention. First is inattentional blindness, which is failure to see visible objects when our attention is directed elsewhere. And the second example of selective attention is change blindness, and that's the failure to notice change or differences in our environment when our attention is focused on something. Lots of examples in that National Geographic video, but if you need a couple more to clarify, or you were absent while we watched that video, here's an inattentional blindness example. 25% of college students talking on their cell phones didn't notice a clown unicycling through the college quad, and so they're so focused on the phone conversation that they miss things in their environment. And so, are they still conscious? Yes, but the focusedness or the narrowing of their consciousness to that cell phone conversation meant that they had experienced inattentional blindness. An example of change blindness is in this famous experiment. Right, 2/3 of people didn't notice that the person they were giving instructions to changed when that piece of plywood moved between them. And so they're so focused on giving the directions to the lost construction worker that they fail to notice that the actual person they were talking to is not the same person. I mean, why is that? Well, usually people don't change into other people midway through conversations, so you're not expecting that. But the key here is that our conscious awareness, it's amazing that we can focus it in on what we can focus it in on, but at the same time that means that we're not necessarily going to see or be aware of everything in our surroundings. So that's the lesson from the Nat Geo video and these 2 examples of selective attention. Okay, the moment that everybody likes to learn about in Unit 2B, sleeping and dreaming. What does all this stuff mean? Again, we'll cover dreams as a group in class because there were a ton of questions that you had asked in your survey that I had you fill out after your 2A quiz. But let's take a look at least at the biological rhythms and sleep, what it looks like physically. Let's talk about why we sleep, the importance of sleep, the dangers of not sleeping, and some sleep disorders that can be diagnosed by a doctor. Okay. Circadian rhythm, you'll want this term down as well. Circadian rhythms are regular body rhythms that occur on a 24-hour cycle, things like body temperature, arousal, mental acuity. Even without cues like sunlight or clocks. Our bodies still work on about a 24-hour schedule, which is kind of interesting. That the time of day in which our circadian rhythms change may alter as we age. A great example is that you being adolescents are more likely to be night owls than I am because I'm old. And so you may say to yourself, 7:30 a.m. start time for school is absolutely ridiculous. Who can function at that early time? Whereas I kind of look at it as, hey, I've already been up since 4, so what's the big deal starting school at 7:30? So younger people are more likely to be night owls, and older individuals are more likely to be early birds as a result of the shift in when our circadian rhythms change. Okay, again, don't feel obligated to write all of this down. The important ones to know are that alpha wave and the REM sleep, the bold ones. But when you are ready to fall asleep, your very active brain waves, which are identified as beta brain waves, begin to transition to a slower alpha wave. And so, that awake state, but that very relaxed state is characteristic of alpha waves. Like allowing yourself to kind of daydream or let your mind wander may move you to an alpha wave. You'll then progress through 4 stages of sleep, which become more deeper as we progress through, all the way to stage 4 sleep, which is that super deep sleep. Like the whole house could crash around you and you wouldn't even be aware of it, as a result of the very slow delta brainwaves that are occurring during stage 4 sleep. And then something really cool happens. Instead of, staying in that deep sleep, you kind of gently come back, up into a lighter stage of sleep. But instead of waking up, you actually move to what's called REM sleep. And this is the stage of sleep in which our brain is the most active and we have the most vivid dreams. So again, it's not that you're not thinking or dreaming at other stages of sleep, but the most vivid dreams are occurring during REM sleep. So how do we measure all of that? This is just a little visual, right? We're going to hook all these electrodes up. You already know what an EEG is, right? And so we're going to monitor the changes in our sleeping case study patient there. And what we get are EEG printouts that look like this. There's your alpha waves, that relaxed state. There's the changing in the waves as we go to the deeper and deeper and deeper levels of sleep. You'll notice that REM sleep, those are very active. It looks more like the awake waves than it does the deep sleep waves. And so that's kind of showing that increased brain activity. That's dreaming on paper. Okay, visual learners, I thought that this chart would help immensely. We cycle through the stages of sleep about every 90 minutes. And so if you look at the different stages, and then if we look left to right on the chart, hours that we are asleep, we kind of see that progression from being awake to falling asleep to moving to stage 2, 3, 4, and then back up 3, 2, 1. But instead of staying in stage 1, we have a little REM stage. Back down to 2, 3, 4, back up 3, 2, 1. Notice the key here is that stage 4 occurs early in the night. Stage 4 is when your body is replenishing itself and getting the rest it needs. REM periods increase as your sleep cycles progress, meaning that the time that your brain needs to recuperate is happening later in the sleep session. So those of us that sacrifice, you're only getting a couple hours of sleep a night, are denying your brain those lengthy REM periods, which actually has some pretty bad long-term effects. So get your sleep. Okay, why? Why do we sleep? All right, here's some theories. Sleep protected our ancestors from predators and from falling at night. So the people that were insomniacs, the people that didn't sleep at night, died, and they didn't have offspring to carry on the genetic code. So from an evolutionary perspective, right, sleep was served as protection. Sleep physically restores the brain, repairing tissue, mopping up free radicals, keeps our brains healthy. We know that memory consolidation and creativity often are happening while we're sleeping, And we know that the growth hormone is produced during deep sleep. So that's why children sleep a lot more than adults. And it's also why children sleep longer in stage 4 than do adults, which also explains why adults need less sleep than people that are still growing and developing, such as yourselves. So sleep is important. So what happens if you don't sleep? There you go. I'm not going to mince words with you. You're going to get sick, old, dumb, and fat. All right, so sleep loss suppresses the immune system. That, not denying yourself sleep, you're more susceptible to cold and flus. It alters your metabolism and hormone function in ways that mimic aging. So higher blood pressure, memory impairment, it makes you seem older than you really are. It also makes us irritable, slow, uncreative, and impairs communication. There's your dumb part. And finally, it leads to weight gain because inadequate sleep puts your body in a high alert, which means that a hunger hormone, ghrelin, is mad produced, and it decreases leptin, the feeling full hormone. Your body thinks, oh my goodness, we're not sleeping. Something must be going down, something bad. And so it will want you to take in every single calorie you can get your hands on, and it's going to store it all as fat in preparation for this perceived long-term threat. And so sleep is super important for all 4 of those reasons. Okay, there are some problems that can occur, and again, these aren't problems that everybody is going to experience, but they would be labeled as sleeping disorders by a doctor. Insomnia is the inability to fall and or remain asleep. Narcolepsy is uncontrollable sleep attacks. Sometimes people lapse directly into REM sleep from talking to someone. Narcolepsy is a very rare disorder and can be helped with medication. Sleep apnea is breathing interruptions during sleep. As a result of constantly waking up to gasp for oxygen, you're never getting those lengthy REM stages as a result of having to start your sleep cycles all over again. Sleepwalking and talking is very common in children. It's usually viewed as harmless. It is genetically based in that it seems to run in families. The connection probably is to low amounts of GABA, which leads to an unsuppressed nervous system. So during deep sleep, we shouldn't be moving at all. And although our brains are relatively inactive, they're still active to some extent. Which leads to some people sitting up, or some people mumbling words, or some people wandering around their homes. That tends to be something that, as the nervous system develops, that people outgrow. And finally, night terrors. Again, probably a similar reason to sleepwalking and sleep talking. They're not nightmares. A nightmare is when you wake up, woohoo, that was a horrible dream. And once you realize it was a dream, that parasympathetic nervous system kind of starts bringing your body back to calm. A night terror, because it's occurring in deep sleep, probably, again, result of the low GABA. People are very tense and agitated. Their eyes are opening. They're screaming in their sleep. And they don't recall these sorts of things in the morning because it's occurring during deep sleep. And so it's just kind of restless sleep. Again, probably a result of a child's underdeveloped nervous system. Okay, so the advice given in your book, Looking for a Better Night's Sleep: exercise regularly but not late in the evening. Avoiding caffeine, especially in the afternoon and at night. Relaxing before bedtime, lowering the amount of light in the room so that your body begins to recognize that it is time for bed. That means not staring at your phone screen in bed. It's bad. Sleeping on a regular schedule, reassuring yourself that a temporary loss of sleep is not going to, cause any great harm. Because sometimes people try too hard to fall asleep and then they psych themselves out. If all else fails, settle for less sleep, either going to bed later or getting up earlier, so that you're timing those bedtimes to match those 90-minute cycles. Okay, so we'll bring any questions you have regarding sleeping and consciousness to class, and we will address dreams as a group. Thanks for listening.